Ruin My Childhood.
You're listening to Ruin My Childhood, the podcast where we decide if some things are better left in the past. I'm Kat.
I'm Mike. We're not even thanking them for listening anymore?
No.
Wow.
Why you have to call me out like that?
I'm just flabbergasted that you have no
hang
respect
on.
or appreciation for our listeners.
We thank them at the end of the episode.
And we should thank them in advance.
We are sorry in advance. You are listening to Ruin My Childhood, the podcast where we decide if some things are better left in the past. I'm Kat.
I'm Mike.
And today we are talking about something that should not feel so relevant. Independence Day.
We're a little late on this one.
It's been on our list for a long time. How are we late on it, though?
Well, it's the end of July by the time this episode drops. It's July 28th as we're recording this.
Right, but no one should be celebrating 4th of July this year anyway.
Yeah, it's a little hard to be patriotic right now.
America, we're number 1 in COVID cases. Okay. This movie, it is directed by the person who directed all of the big disaster movies.
Roland Emmerich.
Emmerich.
So what's funny is, God, there's some movies that he's done that I really like. Like, I like this movie, or at least I remember liking this movie. I liked Stargate and The Patriot. But then he did The Pat Riot. He did Godzilla in 1998, which that was our very first episode of Remake Rewind was Godzilla.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so when we went back and watched it, I actually liked the 1998 Godzilla better than the 2014 Godzilla. But then he also did The Day After Tomorrow, which is awful. He did 2012, which is awful. He did 10,000 BC, which is awful.
Didn't they all make a lot of money?
They made enough money.
It's a popcorn flick.
Yeah.
They serve a purpose. They have their place in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They really do.
They really do.
Not everything needs to be Academy Award bait.
Oh, you know me. I'm totally on board with the popcorn movie.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite movie, or one of my favorite movies, is Point Break. That is not highbrow at all.
No, but this is just like classic 90s American cinema. So what do you remember?
I remember a lot about this movie. I was 8 when this came out, so this was a big deal. I remember everybody in elementary school talking about this. I remember people constantly quoting the Randy Quaid thing at the end of the movie, like, I'm back, because he, saves the day. And I just remember constantly seeing on DVD and Blu-ray release the White House blowing up. And that scene's iconic. Like, when the ships finally blow everything up, and you just see, Los Angeles destroyed, New York destroyed, Washington, D.C. destroyed, all within a matter of minutes.
Kind of like right now.
Yeah. Well, if you believe the right side of the right-wing news, Portland's on fire right now, even though it's one block.
One block.
Yeah, Jesus. But yeah, I remember a lot about this movie. I remember Jeff Goldblum. I remember Will Smith. This was one of his first big movies. This was the first starring movie Will Smith had.
He looks so young.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it because we just did I Am Legend on Remake Rewind, and he was so good in that. And I'm really curious to see how he was in his first major blockbuster versus, a more recent one. So right. I'm excited to go back and watch some young Will Smith and see how that was. But yeah, this was a big part of my childhood. I watched it all the time.
My neighbor had a copy of this, and I remember that theirs was widescreen. We were only able to watch it on full screen at my house. So I'd always go next door to watch this.
Yeah, we always watched it on full screen. So we had the VHS, and I think it was full screen. But yeah, we always got the full screen ones, even when DVD came out. I regret that now.
Yikes.
Yeah, we have quite a few full screen movies, and I'm like, man, this sucks.
Yeah, we should just get rid of them. Did we get any listener comments?
We got a few, but I think one is just next level. And I think we're just going to read the one and just be done. Okay. So, DJ Ryan Fresh, who is a friend of our co-host on Remake Rewind, Alex.
His name alone kind of makes this the best comment.
It does. He's great. I'm going to give him a little shout out. He normally will take screenshots from Simpsons episodes and take Alex Polisi quotes and put them over relevant Simpson screenshots. And he shares them to us, and we've posted a few of them on our Instagram and Twitter. But yeah, he takes random quotes from our episodes of Remake Rewind and puts them over Simpsons images. So
nice.
But he said the ID4 toys came with floppy disks that were like mini games or something. I took my stepbrother's disc and reformatted them and used them to hide my early low-res porn.
Wow. Way to go. That's pretty smart.
It's interesting that they shipped with rewritable CDs.
Yeah.
Those were expensive.
That is very strange.
No other comment's going to top that.
It's not. It's not. We should just go watch this now.
This summer, plan your getaway early.
Please leave these cities in an orderly fashion.
Beat the summer traffic.
Nice driving, Pops.
And whatever you do, don't look up. Newcomb.
Welcome to Earth.
Independence Day.
Peace!
Rated PG-13.
All right, we are back from 1996. Wow. That was very 90s.
There's only one thing that I'm disappointed about this movie.
What?
No Will Smith rap.
Oh. I mean, how long after Fresh Prince was this?
I mean, I think Fresh Prince was still going.
Really?
Let me see when Fresh Prince ended.
He still has that Fresh Prince face.
I mean, it's obviously he's in very good shape, but one of the things that was kind of funny to me is he was still in incredible shape. He had, some decent arms and everything like that. But I just watched I Am Legend where he's doing those weird like pull-ups where his arms are behind his head, and he is yoked. Like he's huge, and he did that in iRobot and I Am Legend, and he's huge.
It's absurd.
Fresh Prince though, let me find out when that ended. So that went till 96. So that ended the same year this movie came out.
Got it.
So this is like fresh off of Fresh Prince.
Fresh off of Fresh Prince, and this was his moment, I guess.
Yeah, he had a string of hits. So he had this, he had Bad Boys and Men in Black, like back to back to back.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
This movie starts, and it's funny because it's such like the quintessential 90s American popcorn flick.
It really is.
And it literally starts with like a photo of our first space litter. I mean, just some junk on the moon. You see man's first footprints on the moon being shaken out.
I thought that was a really cool thing.
The spaceship hovering over it. That was pretty cool. My
first reaction was, and this wasn't like anything. It was just gut reaction was like, oh no. I just said that as that happened because it's like, that's historical and you can't get that back. And it's amazing that because there's no atmosphere, then there's no weather. The footprint is there.
I like it. But also we left garbage there.
I mean, didn't really
the lander module, it's kind of garbage.
Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah, technically we littered on the moon.
Yeah. It's the most American thing we could have done.
It's funny because like Americans really did litter back then. Just a quick tangent. We watched,
Why is this a tangent we need to have?
On Mad Men, one of my favorite scenes in Mad Men, the entire series, there's an episode early on, probably season 1 or 2. They all go to like the park. And John Hamm, I can't remember his character's name. And
Don Draper.
Dick Whitman. His kids get up off the picnic blanket, and Betty gets off the picnic blanket, and he just shakes the trash off from the park, and then they walk away.
America.
Yeah, people littered in the 60s. It's so totally fine.
The movie rips right out the gate.
It does.
Like it's action from the first 30 seconds. And immediately, like, we don't start off meeting anyone. We meet everyone in the midst of the chaos. The signals are being disrupted. They don't know anything about what's going on.
Yeah, we don't meet Jeff Goldblum for like 10 minutes in. But before we get that, it's almost like the opening to, I guess this movie came out before, but this movie and Deep Impact had a similar opening where some unknown lab geek discovers the signal or discovers some sort of alien presence. And they wake up the professor from The Mummy and tell him like, hey, we got this signal. And then he's like, wait a second.
Wait, is this the same universe as The Mummy?
No, that guy died in The Mummy. But he's like, oh my God, that signal's coming from 375 kilometers from Earth. That's the moon.
It's inside the house.
Oh,
That would be horrifying, though. I mean, when you think about it, the moon is way too close.
yeah, if something knocked it out of its orbit, it'd be bad. It also had some music right at the beginning that was a little on the nose. It's the end of the world as we know it.
Immediately, we get a little a little super that's kind of humorous.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
The desert.
Oh, I didn't know those were
was
called
trying to-
supers.
Yeah, the supers. What's the writing?
Oh, is that what those are called?
Isn't that? I mean, that's what I always heard them called.
Oh, I had no idea.
They're like,
yeah,
we've got a super in this that says, you know.
Oh, I'm learning something
The-
about the
writing-
inner workings.
The
of,
writing on the screen often over the establishing shot.
that tells you where you're at.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get a.
But I don't. Maybe that's wrong.
I don't know.
I learned that back when I was doing camera work in a TV studio.
So as we get, we'll call it a super. For
Maybe
the
it's
sake of the
different for
episode.
movies. I don't know. Now I need to know.
We'll call it that for now. But we get some character introductions, and then we get this like super as we're seeing the alien presence across the world. But yeah, it just says Northern Desert, comma Iraq. And my reaction was, yes, the Northern Desert. Like,
What?
they have names. Call it that.
Right.
And it's ridiculous.
But I guess it's 96.
But
How many
later on-
Americans knew where Iraq was in 96?
But later on, we get another super that just, it's also in Iraq. And we just get
Iraq.
solid like a rock. We get another super that just says desert, comma, Iraq. It's like, why?
Now I want to know if that truck campaign that had the like Iraq was after 9/11.
It was before 9/11,
Oh.
I think.
God, I don't know. There's so much brainwashing I'm still deprogramming myself from post 9/11.
So after that super, we get our first introduction to William Smith.
21 minutes.
21 minutes in. And I guess we should introduce Jeff Goldblum's character Dave first and then Will Smith, because Jeff Goldblum...
His name is Dave.
Yeah, his character's
I
name is Dave.
swear to God, I had no idea.
Or David. I don't think they ever call him Dave. It's
I
David.
think I asked you 5 minutes before the end of the movie, what's Will Smith's character's name?
Oh, his name is Steven something.
Right, like I just didn't know their names.
I mean, it's hard not to just call them Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith.
Right. Yeah.
I have no problem calling Bill Pullman President Whitman or
Right.
Whitmer, because it's Mae Whitman, President Whitmire.
Whitmire?
Whitmire.
I don't remember.
I don't know.
Holy
But anyway,
cow.
like after we get the scientist discovering the signal, we get a brief introduction to David, played by Jeff Goldblum, and he's in the park playing chess with his father, and we get just a little tidbit about him that he's been divorced for 3 years but still wears his wedding ring, and he chastises his father about him using a styrofoam cup. Like, that's the end of the world.
I've got more on that.
Oh yeah, go for it. What you got, girl?
It's just funny because, like, okay, so from my standpoint, I grew up in Northern California. My mother was the woman who taught us to recycle. We never littered. I have never intentionally littered in my entire life. Like,
Nice.
there's nothing that would make me want to litter. Like, I will haul my own garbage out of the depths of hell with me.
Yeah, me too. I'll stuff my pockets full of garbage until I can find somewhere to
So,
to
like,
unload
it was always a part of my life, but my mom also had stickers, like, by every faucet reminding us to, like, save water because it's a precious resource and save the whales and, you know, like, all that stuff.
Hey, all sea life matters.
So it's kind of funny that, like, the mention of recycling is just to illustrate what a pain in the ass this guy is. Because he's one of those people
Right.
who wants to recycle. Like, back in the day, when people were first being introduced to yoga and taking care of the earth and all those things, and they just thought, like, everyone who was into that was a total prick. It's
Yeah.
funny.
No, I
it's
agree.
like, these are the parts that we forget about what life was like back then.
This was the cliche in like TV shows, movies, everything. Even into like the early 2000s when recycling was widely accepted, you still had episodes of like The Office and 30 Rock where they had to have Earth Day and somebody had to dress up in a stupid costume and be like
God,
the
that's,
recycling
like,
person.
so relevant to today.
I agree.
Because, like, everyone who fought... This is terrible. Like, before the Clean Air Act, it was bad. And now we kind of have, like, the same thing happening in our society where you're, like, pro-progress and saving the planet. You're liberal.
Yep.
And you're kind of seen as, like, liberal trash. And back then it was the same thing, but but we know beyond the shadow of a doubt how much of an impact those legislations that happened for the environment in the 90s made on the earth. Like,
oh yeah, you see photos of it side by side, and it's like irrefutable.
It's crazy.
We got ozone layer back.
But we're back at square one, amazingly.
What's crazy is when quarantine first started, I remember how quickly the air got cleaner in Los Angeles for a little bit, and it's already starting to get dirty again because even though we're not widely open, more businesses are back, people are going out and hanging out, going to the beaches and stuff. So like traffic is back again. I can see, we're looking out our window during sunset right now, and you can see smog. It's sad.
Yep.
Anyway, back to the movie. Like you mentioned, it's 21 minutes before we meet Will Smith, and it's still not much of an introduction. Like he just wakes up, and it's at this point where spaceships are already starting to hover over the major cities, and it's like rumbling things, and he wakes up and he's like, oh, is that an earthquake? And Vivica Fox is like, it's a 4-pointer.
Go back to sleep. It's like obviously at least a 6.
Yeah. So, and then you have one of these moments, it's a cliche thing where people aren't really paying attention, and he goes and gets his coffee.
The neighbors all look like they're moving.
Yeah.
And wanders outside and doesn't think it's odd that everyone is in their driveways packing up their cars.
And he's got his coffee, he's looking at the newspaper, and then he
has no peripheral vision, apparently.
No, and he's a pilot.
He's very focused.
Fighter pilot, and he has no peripherals.
Poor guy.
But yeah, he looks up as he's got his newspaper, and his jaw just kind of drops, and he starts getting dressed. He's like, I know I'm supposed to be on R&R, babe, but I gotta go. And she's like, no, you're on vacation.
Okay,
he's like,
hang on, though.
Leave is canceled, babe.
He's wandering around outside completely blind. Like, the spaceship is several miles long, and it's literally hovering on the horizon right in front of him, and he doesn't see. And then she comes out to yell at him, and she doesn't see it.
Yeah.
They just woke
up. They just woke up. He had his coffee in his hand. He hadn't had his coffee yet.
It frustrates me.
So at this point, we get a ton of
Goldblum.
Get a ton of Goldblum. He works for like CNN or something like that. He works for some news agency that's in broadcast. He's a
higher up.
Yeah, he's like their head tech guy. He manages the satellites and whatnot. And so he finds the signal that the scientists at the beginning of the movie found. And I don't know what tools he had. We don't see him really like playing with anything, but he just comes and tells his boss, whose name I can't remember. He's that guy with
it's Harvey. I don't know if it's Fierstein or Firestein.
Yeah,
is it
Harvey.
Steen or Stein?
I don't know.
Fear or Fire? I don't know. There are too many combos.
But he basically tells his boss, like, hey, I found this signal. It actually repeats in like 6-hour increments, but there's a countdown. So like, this is going to be an attack. And he tells his boss, like, yeah, get out of the city. Tell your mom to get out of the city. And then we get over to...
a lot goes down really fast. We end up back in that office, and his boss is like hiding under the desk, calling his mother rather than going out and figuring out what to do. You know, in this movie too, which I thought was really funny, he has an exceptionally raspy voice to begin with.
He does.
Most people will know him as the stylist,
the brother,
the brother makeup artist, hairstylist from Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yep.
It sounds like he screamed for 3 days straight and then smoked 5 bowls and then showed up to work on this.
He was very raspy, even more so. I agree. It was different.
He's in so many great things, though. There are a ton of different people that work a lot who are in this.
So during this period, even though obviously Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith are the breakout stars of this movie, we do get a lot of people going back and forth as we get the government figuring out what's going on. We get the president. We get Randy Quaid's family figuring out what's going on.
Little Mae Whitman
is
the president's daughter.
Little baby Whitman.
She's so cute.
Yeah, she was adorable.
Margaret Collin.
Who
is amazing.
Robert Loggia.
We even got Kirsten Warren as her wheelhouse white trash woman.
Yeah.
She's
the one that parties up on the roof. Right. You got Robert Loggia. You've got
Noel Rohr from the X-Files.
Adam Baldwin. Brent Spiner.
I just know him as Noel Rohr.
That's funny because most people would know him from Firefly or Chuck.
You know how I feel about.
Yeah, you don't like either of those shows.
So overrated.
But then you have God, there's so many people. There's so many.
Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah, Harry Connick.
That's a random. He's worked a lot too. Like you don't really think Harry Connick Jr. and think big actor, but he's got a lot of credits.
He's got a lot of credits, and he's
That's
actually...
a terrible thing to say. I know nothing in my ignorance about Harry Connick.
He's not in this movie very long, but I think his role is a very important role. But through him, we get a lot of...
exposition.
We get a lot of exposition. We also get... He's kind of the comic relief for the 10 minutes he's in the movie, because in the 10 minutes he's in, we get a ton of exposition from the military about what's going on, how the attack is going to work.
It's a pretty sweet role.
And he has this part where he leans on Will Smith as like the generals giving them like the plan of attack, and he's like, I'm scared. Hold me.
It's funny that I feel like Harry Connick Jr. got more lines for Will Smith's character development than Will Smith
did.
got.
No, absolutely, because then they end up in the locker room.
Right.
This might have been before the briefing, but around the same time, they're in the locker room
Playing grab ass.
They're playing grab ass. They find a letter in Will Smith's locker, and Will Smith's like, I can't read it. I can't do it. And Harry Connick Jr.'s like, okay, I'll read it.
It's from the Space Guys.
It's from NASA. And it's like, yeah, unfortunately, you got turned down. And then Harry Connick Jr. finds Will Smith's engagement ring for Vivica A. Fox.
Which is so ugly.
Oh, yeah, it's super
It has
tacky.
2 rapists on it.
Dolphins.
Dolphins are rapists. Call a spade, Michael.
Trigger warning.
Dolphins rape people.
Yeah.
You've been warned.
Yeah. You mentioned Will Smith's character arc gets more lines from Harry Connick Jr. than Will Smith. So he finds the engagement ring. So that's how we find out that Will Smith wants to get married. He's also the way we find out that he wants to be part of NASA and be on the space shuttle.
A little bit of misogyny there in that you're never going to fly a space shuttle if you marry a stripper line.
And
Yikes.
to that point, that's very problematic. But we also
so then we
didn't
get
know
exposition of Will Smith's girlfriend.
Right, we didn't know she was a stripper yet.
That's funny.
Yeah, so it's like we get a ton of this exposition from this character who's only in the movie for like 5 to 10 minutes.
He's the real hero in this movie.
In the opening act, like this is still arguably act 1 of the movie.
Yeah.
And then
this is
point,
a long movie, and it feels every minute of, what is it?
2 hours and 26 minutes, I think it was.
Yikes.
But it also rips. Like there's always something happening, which is insane. Like at this part of the movie,
this movie feels like 2020. You're like, holy shit, that was a lot. There's more.
Yeah. So like at this point, while they're like getting briefed, like this movie, we keep cutting back and forth between the 3 protagonists, Bill Pullman and the president. We finally get to a point where we get a ton of exposition about Jeff Goldblum as he's driving to the White House. We find out that the press secretary is his ex-wife, the one whose ring he's still wearing. We find out that he decked the president before he became president
It's been 3 years since they got divorced.
Right. So it's been 3 years. We find out the reason they got divorced was because Jeff Goldblum got jealous of Bill Pullman, thinking that Bill Pullman was banging his wife. So he decked him, At this point, he was probably...
wait it out. Like, it's not going to be more than 8 years. Chill, dude.
Well, this was before he was president. But still, it's like he probably was like a senator or some high-ranking military official, like, to become the president. So
I'm convinced that everyone in Washington is banging each other anyway.
Good.
Mitch McConnell, Condi. It's freaky in there.
But yeah, we get all this exposition. We find out that how smart Jeff Goldblum is. We find out at this point that he got his like PhD at MIT. And we find out that he's actually, like, in addition to being able to scramble the signal and find out what the aliens are up to, he has this little gadget that he pulls out and puts on the top of his car roof like a police siren.
It's great. It's kind of just like a continuation of the best parts of his character from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's funny enough, at some point in the movie, he actually repeats a line from Jurassic Park when he's in the spaceship, must go faster.
That's the thing about Goldblum. Like, you're always going to get Goldblum. It's just a matter of if he fits in the script.
Right. And what's funny is he has some very Goldblummy moments in this movie, but I'd still say he plays this movie pretty straight. I think this is probably peak Goldblum in terms of like attractiveness.
It is.
Like he was looking pretty good. Like you could tell he had some muscle. Like his chest was still looking pretty good. He was kind of sexy.
That's some Goldblum right there.
Yeah. But we get
a long battle scene right after all that.
Yeah. So we get it's kind of cool because we're seeing it once again on 3 fronts. So we get it on. By the time he gets to the White House, there's only 10 minutes before the countdown ends. So they have to like haul ass to get onto Air Force One. Air Force One's taking off as the White House is exploding and the fireballs chasing them, they barely get into the sky. And then you have the stripper friend is up on the roof partying, and she gets, blasted.
She's toast.
Yeah, she gets toasted. And then we get like the big New York tower getting killed, and you just see
the big New York tower getting killed. All right, Michael.
This movie is insane. So like this part of the movie,
clearly,
I was so juiced at this part of the
getting
movie.
Murdered all over the place.
So yeah, you get the New York.
Oh my God, Michael. Federal buildings getting killed.
Yep.
Oy.
But we get this big skyscraper in New York getting destroyed, and you're just seeing cars flying all over the place. We're seeing our pal Harvey gets killed, and he has this like moment. He's like, "Oh my God," knowing he's gonna die.
There's this one blast, this one specific blast in that whole montage where they made sure to show you every single car that went flying from that blast. Because usually you'll get the big explosion, and you'll get 2 or 3 cutaways.
Yeah.
This is like cutaway
20
of car,
cutaways.
cutaway of car, cutaway of car.
And we get it in New York and Los Angeles.
They put a lot of cars on
you
wires.
see a lot of bodies too.
Yeah,
there's so many bodies. Like this, all the fight scenes throughout the movie, you just see bodies flying everywhere.
It's intense.
And
but they go into this battle scene, and okay, like obviously later they say that lots of people died, but it kind of looks like they're going after the spaceship with 10 fighter jets, and then you see like hundreds of the alien fighters coming at them. And it's like, how were they in the air for more than 30 seconds?
Well, that's the thing is we didn't know anything about them. You're being very critical when there's an alien force we know nothing about. They sent hundreds of fighter jets to fight each one of these things. They didn't realize they even had force fields, so they lost a few guys just trying to fly close to it. And them crashing into the force field, they're like, oh crap, there's something there.
It's just silly.
And then after they blow their load on the force field, like they all send all their missiles into the force field, then you get like a hive of bees coming out, a swarm of bees of these like spaceships flying out.
Oh.
And we're going back and forth between that fight with Will Smith in the plane, and then we're also now seeing his fiance, well, not fiance yet, but his girlfriend. I don't know her name, Vivica A. Fox's character's name. Katrina's going to look it up while I say what's going on.
Yeah.
But we get her fleeing Los Angeles, and she's got her son, and they end up in this tunnel, which I'm not sure where this tunnel in Los Angeles is, but they're in a tunnel in Los Angeles area. And she looks up in a rearview mirror, sees all the people running in the fireball, and she grabs the kid and she starts kicking down this door in a tunnel. And then she jumps in, and right at the last second, she's like, the kid's like, the dog. So she calls the dog, and the dog does this like heroic run in like slow motion, bouncing off of cars, parkour style, and then jumps in right as the fireball goes.
We get a slow motion fireball
with the dog.
Is it a golden retriever?
Yeah.
Or is it a yellow lab? I can't remember.
I think it was.
Jasmine Dubrow.
Jasmine Dubrow.
That's who it is.
Got it. But yeah, that dog is hilarious. It's so. It was funny because in that scene, you were laughing at like how many cars were flying and all the bodies flying.
That scene was hilarious.
And then I went like, wait, you're gonna laugh harder. And I counted it down like 3, 2, 1 with my fingers. And then you were like, you put your hand over your mouth when the dog jumped. It was so funny.
It's ridiculous.
So what's crazy about this scene is where most of this happens, but all that destruction was real. That wasn't CG. They actually built models of Los Angeles, the White House, New York, and actually like detonated it. So this movie has the record to this day for most miniatures in a movie ever.
Well, and it's not going to be topped, really, because everything went CG right after.
Yeah, there's no reason for anyone to beat this, but I really appreciate model work.
Oh, it deserves it. Like, it's some solid model work.
It looks amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty good on that part.
At the end of that scene, Will crash lands near one of the alien ships. He's screaming as he climbs out. He unclips himself from his emergency chute, and he goes over, opens the spaceship. We get like a few seconds of him like watching these green tentacles
just like flopping around,
just wiggling, like some puppeteers in there, like waving stuff around. And then he punches the alien in the face.
And what doesn't really make sense about this is later on we find out, like, that's not the alien. That's like an Iron Man suit that the alien wears. Like, you would think it would be able to handle a punch.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, now granted, the alien was
It
probably
looked a little
already...
gelatinous.
It was probably a little concussed already because it just crashed. It crashed into a cliff and, like, went through the cliff and up onto the rocks.
It's ridiculous.
So what's funny is in this scene, he now has to, as he was flying, there's just like a throwaway line that he saw in a base of some kind while flying. He seen a base while he was flying around, and that ends up being Area 51. But he starts dragging this alien in his parachute across the desert, and this is like one of those dry salt bed things, like out in like Utah,
like
is
the
where
Salton Sea.
Yeah, something like that. And what's funny is there's a bunch of stuff that happened on this set when they were doing that. So one, there actually are little crustaceans.
Crustaceans?
There are some crustaceans that live there when there's water.
Oh.
And when they die, the water's very shallow, so you can smell them decomposing. So apparently, right after it drains, there's millions of decomposing crustaceans.
Oh,
and
how
so
fun for them.
Will Smith's character says something like, "What is that smell?" That was just a real reaction because he was like in the middle of the take and he got a whiff of it. The wind shifted and he got a whiff and he's like, "What is that?" And then went back into the line.
I mean, what would an alien smell like anyway?
Exactly.
Like most people can't even handle like Mexican food.
But that happened. And then the other thing that happens, because we also have this salt plains that's very reflective. It's kind of like a mirror. So it was so bright and sunny that the sun would shine down, hit the earth, and then bounce up everybody's pants. So the entire crew and Will Smith got sunburns on their legs, even though they were wearing long pants.
That's so frustrating.
That's crazy. Like that's not even something I would think
really
about.
That's a really bad day on set.
Is that something you would even think about?
No, not
Now,
at all.
at this point, I'm sure every single one of those crew, if they're ever filming in the desert, they're like, "Hey, tuck your socks into your tuck your pants into your socks so you don't get sunburned."
Okay, so here's one thing I don't understand. Like, how did he know the exact location? Like, it's a hidden base.
He's a pilot, and this time his peripherals worked.
Stupid.
Because he saw it. So I don't even think we saw it, but, at this point, we're now several hours removed from the alien attack. We're hearing that the ships are now moving, and we hear that from Randy Quaid's family. Like, they're, like, camping out in this RV with a bunch of other people in their RVs. And they're like, "Oh, yep, they're leaving because the ships are moving. We should probably move, too. Stay ahead of them." And they're just driving through the desert, and they run into Will Smith's character out in the desert, and Will Smith's like, "Oh, there's a base over there. I saw it while flying." Like, there's but they find it.
There are a lot of things in this movie that are very convenient, and they get it out of the way in as few seconds as possible so that you don't have time to be like, "What?"
Yeah. I mean, everything at this point becomes a matter of convenience. So
it's totally convenient.
We at this point, before Will Smith shows up at the Air Force or the Area 51, we have, while they're in Air Force One, realizing they're going to have to land eventually, they're getting in an argument on the plane. David is arguing with the president. He's like, the president mentions that maybe they should consider nuking the spaceships, and we
should consider nuking these things that are then gonna fall onto the major cities.
Yeah, and the fallout on our own country. So Jeff Goldblum says all this stuff. He's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you're gonna nuke your own country? You're gonna get fallout everywhere?" And the president and the Secretary of Defense are like, "Who are you? Like, you don't know anything." And so his dad, Jeff Goldblum's dad, is like, "If it wasn't for him, you guys would all be dead at the White House. The entire world would be dead because they wouldn't have known these attacks were coming. He saved the world already once. Like, you better listen to him." And so and then the dad mentions something like, "I know you guys know about the Roswell Area 51 stuff." And he's like joking. He's not being serious about it. And the president's like, "Yeah, that doesn't exist." And the Secretary of Defense is like, "No, it kind of does."
Need to know, or what was it? Plausible
deniability. Yep. So we get to Area 51.
God, I hope we have that.
Oh, twice since coronavirus has hit, they've tried to change the narrative and focus. Like, we've given 2 giant info dumps on UFOs in the last 3 months,
and everyone's like, "Oh, aliens? Okay, fine. Are we all dead or what?"
Yeah. Can we go to the bar and get a drink?
Can we go to the beach yet? Can I get my hair done?
Yeah. So we get to Area 51.
We meet Data.
We meet Data, Brent Spiner.
This kind of bothers me. Like, as soon as the president meets him, he's sizing this guy up. He's got like some sweet long hippie hair. You know, he literally lives and works underground. The president like looks him up and down, and he says, well, Data says, they don't let us out much. And the president is like, I understand. And he's just like looking at him like he's scum.
Didn't he say something already that was kind of messed up? Like, the last 24 hours have been amazing, and the president's like, millions of people have died.
I think that was after that.
Oh, that was after, because they were looking at the spaceship when it happened.
Right.
So we get a ton of exposition. We find out that Roswell actually were the same aliens that we're experiencing now.
So they've had this ship the whole time, but it wouldn't power up until this mothership got closer.
Correct. So it activated the spaceship. So all of a sudden, the spaceship they've had for 50 years is floating around. They started getting these signals, and we find out that 3 aliens survived the crash. Or like one died on impact, one died like a day later, and then one survived several weeks. So we find out a little bit that they have like these weird exoskeleton Iron Man suits, and then they have similar tolerances to cold and heat as humans. They breathe oxygen. They have eyes and ears, but no vocal cords, so we don't know how they communicate.
But they still make noises.
I mean, that could just be breathing.
Like a lobster hissing?
Yeah. I mean, if you breathe, even without vocal cords, you still make a sound. And bugs can shriek and stuff as air escapes different vents and whatnot.
As it escapes from the exoskeletons.
Exactly. So we get a lot of this like exposition right here about what they're about. Will Smith shows up. I actually really liked this scene where he shows up with like all the rednecks, and the guy at the gate doesn't want to let him in. He's like, I understand that you're a captain, but I can't let you on the base. Like, I need your like credentials. He's like, check back there. And he lifts up the parachute and you see the alien, and he's like, let him in. It's just like,
it's so good.
But then they do like this really rad scene. Like, I forgot how creepy and dark the scene was and how long it actually goes. But we get this like autopsy. They're like cutting open the exoskeleton, and then Brent Spiner's like mind gets attacked by the alien. Like, he kind of like possesses him and uses him to communicate with the president. And we find out that basically they're like locusts. They go to one planet, they use all the resources, and then they go to the next and use all the resources and whatnot. But we find out that there's absolutely no hope of peace. Their only goal is to kill humans so they can take over the planet. And we get that all because he tries to like mind attack probe the president. And,
mind attack probe.
And he's like taking over the president's mind when the general looks at the guy from Firefly and X-Files. I don't remember the name that you use for the X-Files.
Noel Roar.
Noel Roar. Is that just like a like a Noel Roar? I don't know.
Oh God.
Anyhow, it's a really cheesy scene. But the general's like, is that bulletproof glass? And then he pulls out a pistol and he's like, no, sir. And then just like starts shooting at the alien. And he's got just a little handgun, like a little 9mm pistol. And then you see the alien's like, ah! And it's like moving its shoulders back and forth. Like it's getting hit by like a machine gun. And then it flies like 20 feet and hits the wall. It's like, come on.
There's a lot that happens in this area. We find out that, I mean, obviously, El Toro's been completely destroyed.
That was Will Smith's base.
He gets the news, like, the dude tells him, he's like, what, they didn't tell you? El Toro's been destroyed.
Oh, like, son, they didn't tell you?
Literally, like, one beat, and then he walks away.
Yeah, it's almost like you're an idiot for not knowing this.
But also at that point, it's like 48 hours in, you're like, dude, everyone we've ever loved is dead. Yeah. What do you want me to do about it?
Well, then they let him take a helicopter to go to Los Angeles to look for his stripper fiance.
Whoa, Mike. Easy.
Well, that's the
judgmental tone.
No, that's like everybody's tone of her in this movie. except for the first lady.
She's not the fiance yet.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but except for the first lady's like, "Oh, that's cool."
Right, because they end up together, like, of all people.
Yeah,
that's so.
Her
strange.
helicopter crashed right where Vivica A. Fox and
I don't even know. Like, honestly, this whole second half of the movie, it's like they nuked the ship. They nuked Houston. It didn't take the ship down. They're like, has the target been destroyed? No, ship's still there.
They say, yep. And they're like, can we get visual confirmation? And then it's like they're in a submarine with the periscope turned the wrong way, and then they just turn around and it's like the whole field of vision is the ship. It's like,
my bad. Still there. It is still there.
It's like when when a kid's like, Mom, where's my juice box? And she's like, it's in the fridge. No, it isn't. I checked. It's behind the milk. No, it isn't. Oh, there it is.
Right. Yeah. It's dumb. This whole second half of the movie, like, it goes so fast and so much happens. And I think they just kept everything in, because if you had too much time to think about what you were watching, you were just like,
It falls apart.
Is this?
Yeah, so it the movie rips at this point, so we get...
Rips ass.
It's stupid. Jeff Goldblum figures out that... I didn't catch what his father said, but his father said something, because Jeff Goldblum is like...
recycling.
Kind of, but no, he's like throwing stuff around in the lab. He's like kicking garbage cans and stuff, and then Dad's like, but he's like doing it so unenthusiastically. It's almost like
it was like he was choreographed, and they said at the end, we just want you to fall so that you're leaning against that suitcase, but like it's a suitcase with wheels.
Yeah, it doesn't make
so. He's like flailing and he has to fall dramatically. So he just looks like a child throwing a tantrum because it's so obviously mechanical.
It's almost like if Michael Cera was throwing a tantrum.
Yeah, that's just,
it's just slow.
I think that's just some bad directing right there.
So yeah, he gets this weird thing, and the father says something that makes Goldblum like, aha, then figures out he needs to write like a computer virus for the spaceships. And then it's just like, oh,
for the mothership specifically.
For the mothership that will cascade through the rest of the ships.
Because they're all interlinked.
Right. And so...
electromagnetically.
Did they say electromagnetically?
I mean, that's
I thought they were just
that
using,
would make sense.
No, they were using our satellites. So all of their spaceships were communicating with our satellites because they didn't have line of sight going around the globe. And
How did they stop radar, though?
This is interference. I don't know. We basically get just BS that these aliens like disrupt everything, so we can't really track them other than like Doppler.
Super Iraqi desert. Just don't ask too many questions, and it's a great film.
Yeah, so we get through. He figures out they have to do the virus. They just like the guy's like, yeah, the spaceship probably works, and like the Secretary of Defense is like, no, it doesn't. Jeff Goldblum's like, take the clips off, and then it's floating. They're like, okay, cool. Will Smith could fly it, and then they go up into space. They're successful. They upload the missile. We do get this like character moment where Will Smith has to like smoke a cigar every time he finishes a mission, and Jeff Goldblum smokes a cigar, and it was like this big character moment, like, hey, you're smoking a cigar? The nerd's smoking a cigar? Oh, nerd's trying to be cool and smoke a cigar now? And he's like, yeah. And he's like leaning on his ex-wife. He's like, I got my girl back. I've got my cigar. I'm Jeff Goldblum.
Gross.
Yeah. And then we get the front attack is the president decides to get into an airplane after giving that. I don't know how we didn't bring up the speech as one of the things. Remember, arguably the most famous thing in this movie besides the explosions is his speech. This isn't just an American holiday. This is the world's Independence Day. Like that big inspirational speech. People play it all the time.
We just watched it and I don't remember it.
That's funny because if you look up like inspirational speeches, just type in inspirational speech on YouTube, this will pop up.
Yikes.
So the president leads the attack in the planes as they're taking down the mothership, or not the mothership, just a spaceship, and they all blow their load. Their loads are all over the place.
I don't even follow what you're talking about anymore.
It's all the every pilot they can get. So they have civilians flying fighter jets,
right?
Crop dusters. Anybody.
Shut
up!
You did like an Arnold thing. No, they take anyone who can fly. Like literally, this dude stands up on a stage. He's like, "We need pilots." And like this dude in cargo shorts is like, "Yo, that's me."
Just walks up. Yeah.
They get all these dads who
Randy Quaid is drinking,
who fly like twin prop planes. They're like, "Oh yeah, here, everyone gather around while we teach you how to fly this $10 million jet." I don't. How much is a jet from the 90s?
Those
probably
are probably
way more than that.
Those are probably hundreds of millions.
Like I don't even know.
I think like one fighter jet is like $225 million.
And they just keep getting more expensive.
Yeah,
But
dude.
I just don't know what the inflation was from 96 to now and
It's
the
probably
cost
like
of
$500
fighter
million.
jets.
I don't know.
I have
But
no idea.
They put all these guys in there, and they're just
They
shooting
just
their missiles.
teach them how to fly jets and deal with the G-force without G-suits. You know, it's fine.
There's a line,
all fine.
something like Adam Baldwin's character, Noel Rohr from X-Files. Jane from Firefly.
What's his name in this?
I don't know.
We'll just call him Noel Rohr.
He says something along the lines like, "We've got 90 minutes to teach you 50 years of aeronautics."
And then they all died.
A lot of them did.
Most
So
of them died.
They shoot. They all run out of missiles, and they're like, "Yeah, nobody has missiles." And then
The drunk dad
Randy
with the
Quaid.
red plane.
the red plane. He shows up and he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm late, Mr. President. I've got one." And he goes to shoot the missile, and it malfunctions. So he realizes he has to sacrifice
Goes
himself.
kamikaze.
And the whole movie, his son is very like angry with his father because he's a drunk and he crop dusted the wrong field, and he's just embarrassing. Somehow this kid gets into like the command center of the mission and
Yeah, that's
hears
weird.
the dad being
There
like,
are like 6 kids in there.
"Yeah, hey, tell my kids I love them." And he flies up into the anus of the spaceship
As the sphincters
as the sphincter
retracting.
is opening up to let its load out to void.
No, it's closing at that point.
no, it's opening because it's about to fire.
No, it already opened, and then it's like the spires are going in, so he almost doesn't make it inside.
Well, there's like 2 sphincters. It's like a big sphincter that's opening, so the little sphincter can like focus and shoot, like squirt the laser
The
out.
sphincters are dilating and calibrating.
Yeah. So like it's about to do the same type of attack that destroyed New York and Los Angeles. So he flies up and he's like, "Hello, boys, I'm back," and then like flies into the blast with his like missile. It
And
blows up the entire ship.
Everything blows up because
Yeah.
they're all controlled remotely.
Well, no, each
That's a
person.
little
No.
strange,
It
though.
wasn't like that. They all had to do their other thing. Right after it's done, they get on the radio. The president says, "All right, tell everybody else," because they're using Morse code to communicate. Like, what you have to do, you need to destroy it right before they fire. So there's a line that's saying like, "Okay, go tell all of our allies how to destroy these ships." Because so we only actually saw one get
Well,
destroyed.
no, that doesn't make any sense. I think what happens is they destroy the big ships, and then the little fighter ones just fall out of the sky.
The little
as
fighter
soon
ones.
as
Yeah, I thought
those-
you meant all the big ships.
No.
Okay, yeah, because they're not like a hive mind where they all just collapse. Okay,
Right.
yeah. So the little ships, I think you're right.
The little ships are hive mind.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, he destroys the ship, and then the president goes, "That son of a bitch!" Like it was just an awkward delivery. It
Take
wasn't
a
like,
look at his Earthlings. How you doing?
but just really quick, like you mentioned that Bill Pullman earlier when he meets Brett Spiner's character was just kind of like delivers the line. Yeah, I can see why he does this thing where this guy.
He's
just
not a likable dude.
He
in this
saves the
movie.
world like by just sacrificing himself, and the guy's like, I could see the line was like, "That son of a bitch did it!" Like, but he's like, "That son of a bitch did it," and I'm like, that guy's a hero. He just sacrificed himself for the world.
Right. No, I understand why he's an unpopular president.
Yeah.
Which is funny because like Bill Pullman is such a charismatic, like attractive, likable dude overall, and
Yeah.
this character's like he's just not. Like you don't really like him. You're not quite rooting for him.
Well, and like you said, he's very likable. Like in You've Got Mail. Oh no,
As Walter,
Sleepless in Seattle.
yeah.
He's just like totally cool with Meg Ryan. Like, "Oh, you want to go bang Tom Hanks? By all means."
Not how that goes.
It's almost exactly that.
It's not that at all.
You want to go be in a relationship with this guy you've never met? By all means, I hope you're happy. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Wait, which one? Sleepless in
Both,
Seattle.
both this and this one. But yeah, like they saved the day, and 20 years later they made a sequel, and it was awful.
You know what? It's weird. I would love to see this remade today with like our special effects and some better directing and writing.
I think better acting.
It has good bones.
but honestly,
It could be really fun.
I think the special effects were good enough because so much of it was practical. I don't think I would want the special effects redone.
No, I think we just have a slightly higher standard for blockbuster scripts now
Yeah.
than we did back then.
Oh, for sure. I've never thought this was a good movie, but it was just so fun.
But like if it was made today, it could be really fun.
except they tried it in 2016 and it was awful.
Was it the same movie though?
Well, no, it was a sequel to this one, but the plot was pretty much the same.
Was it?
There's the aliens are back.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Where'd they come from?
It was just like, this was just one fleet. So they take over a bunch of different planets at the same time. So this was the first time in the 2016 Independence Day Resurgence, I think is what it was called. The aliens are back, but this time we're like cocky. We're like, we've reverse engineered all their tech. So we've got like faster than light speed now. We also have like portable versions of that giant laser for, our military bases. So we're all cocky. Like if the aliens ever come back, they're screwed. But then it's the same plot, basically.
Nice.
Jeff Goldblum's back. Bill Pullman's back. Will Smith isn't. So that movie, they wrote 2 scripts when they were getting ready to be made. One, if Will Smith agreed to come back.
When they were getting ready to be made.
When it was getting ready to be made, yes. They had one script if Will Smith wanted to come back, and another one if he didn't come back.
Oh my God.
He didn't come back. And so he's killed. There, it's like, oh yeah, he was testing a new spaceship prototype and it crashed and he died. Yeah.
That had to be so frustrating to be like tentatively booked as a character contingent on if Will Smith feels like doing this film.
Right.
Because there had to be a few.
For sure.
I'd love to find out who they were.
I don't know, and I don't care because that movie was atrocious. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
Anyway, did this ruin your childhood?
No, I had a blast watching this. I actually was surprised at how well the special effects held up, and I was expecting a much goofier Jeff Goldblum. This was kind of a subdued Goldblum with some Goldblum highlights, and I found him pretty good. It was a
moderate Goldblum.
I was a little confused by Will Smith's acting because I just watched I Am Legend, which was...
Confused is a nice word.
He was
terrible.
Yeah,
he was not good in this.
His delivery wasn't good, and watching I Am Legend, where it's like, honestly, I think I Am Legend, he gives an almost Oscar-worthy performance. Like, he's very good.
I think part of it is his style of acting. He really lets stuff land, and he really lets it sit there.
Yeah.
And there's no time for that.
Not in this movie. Yeah.
So I think part of what we do see is very much edited down from a larger performance.
Right. And I think you get that. That makes a ton of sense because he was just coming off of a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did this, and then he did Men in Black, and Men in Black, it's much more punchier. Like,
right.
He learned from this movie and took that with him in Men in Black, because I think he's much better in Men in Black.
I mean, obviously it worked for him.
Well, for sure. He's
whatever it was.
Yeah, he did great.
This did not ruin my childhood.
I had fun.
It was really fun to watch, although the last hour I felt like, okay, this movie could be over already. It's not something I would ever watch again, I don't think. But
I'll watch it again.
I think it held up a lot better than I expected. All right, so that pretty much wraps that up. What are we going to discuss next time?
I'm thinking we should do a baseball movie since baseball season just started. You want to do Angels in the Outfield or Rookie of the Year?
Either, I don't care. Angels in the Outfield.
Oh, Baby JGL.
Who?
Baby JGL.
Oh.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
God, I can't stand sports movies, but whatever.
This one's got Tony Danza and Danny Glover.
Hold me closer,
Danny
Tony
Glover.
Danza. All right.
But thank you guys for listening. Katrina, Kat, love my life. Where can our followers find you on the interwebs?
I'm all over the internet at Katrinosity.
Check out her YouTube.
Woo!
You can check out everything that's MDX. You can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all at MDXpods. Check out our Patreon if you want early access to the show. But that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.